Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Paddy O'Reilly, and I'm here to talk to you about my new book, which is Other Houses. And I'm going to show it to you again a few times because I love the cover so much. But hi, Christine. Thanks for coming. So I'll talk a little bit about the cover before I talk about the story. And please feel free to post any comments, say hello, let me know where you are. As I said, my name's Paddy O'Reilly, obviously, and I'm in Melbourne, in Coburg North, in what is and always will be the land of the Wurundjeri Nation of the Kulin people. And I have just, hi Jessie, I have just published this book. It came out last week. It's very exciting to have it out. And yes, let me show you. From Inverloch. Oh, that's a beautiful place, Sabine. A beautiful place from Inverloch. I hope you go swimming every day. Yes, this beautiful hardback designed by, hello Carolyn, designed by Sandy Cull. Oh, the Fleurieu Peninsula. I've never been. I think it must be beautiful. I've heard about it. I've read about it. I've seen photos of it. How I would love to go there. So this book is designed by Sandy Cull, who is a famous and wonderful book designer. Hello, Wagga Wagga. Oh gosh, this is so good. People coming in from all places. Hi Wendy, hi Jane. And you'll see that the cover has this beautiful key on it. And the key is important because it's about a cleaner who goes into a lot of houses and has a lot of keys. But of course, the key is not just a physical key. When a cleaner goes into a house, she has the key to the lives of the people who live in there. So it's a double meaning of the beautiful keys on this hardback book. Lane Cove in Sydney, that I have been to. So many places that I have been to, and in the last few years, of course, haven't been able to go anywhere because Melbourne, longest lockdown in the world. But we're coming out. I had a launch last night and people came out and we celebrated. It was just the most wonderful thing. Corowa, also been there, loved Corowa. Tracy's from Corowa and Bev from Launceston, beautiful. Oh, this is like the whole of Australia coming together. It's incredible. So I might just start telling you about my book, if that's okay. The book is about mainly two people. Of course, there are many other characters. Lily is a house cleaner and Janks, her man, works in a factory. And they have moved from a pretty rough suburb into a more genteel suburb because their daughter, Lily's daughter and Janks' stepdaughter, who he loves so much, they've moved because she fell in with a pretty bad young crowd. She's a teenager, and they needed to get her away from that crowd because they wanted her to have a better life than they've got because they're pretty much struggling. They moved to this suburb where the rents are higher. They need both of their incomes to cover the rent and thank you so much, Kieran. Thank you. They've moved because they want a better life for their daughter, and I don't think I know a single parent who doesn't want a better life for their daughter. So they've moved, but the problem is that Janks suddenly disappears. And when the book opens, he's already disappeared. And we in the book, we follow Lily and we follow Janks and we see what's happening with both of them, two very different stories because of what has happened. And Lily doesn't believe and will not believe that he has just run away. So she's searching for him. He is doing something else. I don't want to give too many spoilers. He is doing something else to try and fix a mistake that he made for all the right reasons. He made this mistake for all the right reasons, but it was a silly thing to do, and now he's out trying to fix it. One of the things about this book that it only came out last week, but I'm getting a lot of comments about it already. And one of the things that people really seem to love about the book is that, as well as following the story of Lily searching and Jank's doing what he has to do, we follow Lily into a lot of the houses that she cleans. And it's a kind of wonderful thing that happens with cleaners, that they see the full range of how people live. And in the book, you go into one house, it's completely different to the next house. And one person said to me, one reader said to me, I felt a bit like a voyeur because I was going into these houses and seeing all these ways that people live. He said, but I loved it. I loved doing that. And I actually loved writing about it too, because I did actually work as a cleaner. I worked as a cleaner for a council, and the cleaning was fascinating because people want to be there for different reasons. Some people actually wanted me there for conversation. They didn't actually have many people to talk to. So they got me in and they would follow me around the house as I cleaned, talking, trying to get out this stuff that they needed to say, but they had no one to say it to. And then, of course, other people they just wanted cleaning. Other people wanted cleaning, but they didn't want me to think they were dirty, so they cleaned the house before I came. And so the cleaning was a certain kind of clean, like it was really the hard floor mopping and stuff like that, but they'd done a lot of stuff. Oh, so Kathy Moore from Lismore, hell, you are going to be doing some cleaning. I feel for you. Everyone up there, I feel for them and the cleaning that they will have to do. That's pretty exceptional kind of cleaning. I hope you're doing okay. And I wonder too about the people who are listening in now, whether you have a cleaner or whether you've ever been a cleaner, because as people are reading the book, I'm finding out that quite a few of my friends also have done cleaning. I've done a lot of jobs in my life, the kind of typical writer doing every kind of job. But cleaning is the one that really stayed in my mind, which is pretty much how I ended up writing this book. But so many people have done cleaning, and so many people have a cleaner. And I think the relationship between the person who cleans and the person who has the cleaner is quite complex. It's intimate because the cleaner knows so much about you. But I think, most cleaners, nearly all of them, are actually very respectful, and your secrets are safe with them. It's part of the job. It's part of the contract that the cleaner has, not just cleaning the house, but knowing about the person or the people or the family that is in that house and how they live and maybe some of their secrets. And you don't tell anyone about that because that's part of the cleaner's job. Discretion is part of the cleaner's job. Anyway, so in the story, Lily is working through her job because she can't afford, even though her life is a catastrophe, her husband has disappeared, she's not going to have enough money for the rent next month. And there's Bev. Yeah, Bev did cleaning as part of community aged care. Actually, funnily enough, I did an interview with Jacinta Parsons on ABC Melbourne last week, and even she did a bit of cleaning. But she said she did it with backpackers, and I think, oh, that would not be pleasant. That would really not be pleasant. Community aged care, I think, would not be so bad, Bev. I'm not sure. I haven't done that. Anyway, so Lily has to keep cleaning because she needs the wage, and, cleaning is casual work. And if she loses that work, then she's got no hope of paying the rent because she's, at this point, not going to have Janks's salary as well. So there's that tension that happens when a catastrophe causes your life to kind of blow up, that your head is all about the catastrophe, but you have to go on living your normal life. You have to do your job. You have to go to work. You have to clean the houses. You have to look after the kid, and you have to make the meals. Life goes on despite the catastrophe that's happening. And so, yeah, as I was saying, they go into houses. So Lily works with another woman called Shannon, who's got quite a dry wit, and they. I used to name houses too. They name their houses. They name their houses things like the weather, because they have so many spiders in their windows, and they don't like them cleaned because they think that they keep the mosquitoes down. They have the House of Doom because there's an ABC radio announcer who is always talking doom on the TV, and they have the Horror House, which is a very close to a hoarder, probably a hoarder. Then they have to kind of make their way through the stacks of newspaper and kind of snatch things away before he realizes what's happening. He is actually the father of the person who employs them. And so they do that, and it's a kind of relief as well. So although she's having this terrible time searching for Janks, there's a kind of relief in doing the things that you have to do and just going through your work and, living your life and knowing that this thing that you do it well, you're proud of how you do it, and you just get in and do it. That's a kind of soothing aspect to her life. I'm just looking at Wendy, had a cleaner a few times and was a tidier before they came. I knew that happens all the time. It really does. And I'd be interested in why you did it, Wendy. But this is interesting. Also had one who sent the keys back when the mail didn't get a position. I was involved with the interview. Oh, interesting. It is a complicated relationship. It's a complicated relationship. Anyway, in the book, I wrote it partly because I had never stopped thinking about that time when I was a cleaner, but also I was quite interested and have always been interested in the lives of women who are, class is a difficult thing to talk about because it used to be that there was labour and there was capital, but it's become a lot more complicated than that. And when you think about class, I think people often think about the working class man, the factory worker or the labourer. But what about women who are trying to get by on a low wage? What about all the single mothers? What about the women who are working in the factories? You very rarely read about them. And I wanted to explore what life is like for them, and also to look at how they see the people who are doing better than them. And I didn't want to write a book about, people who are poor and are alcoholics, or people who are poor and are drug addicts, or who are being, Rosanna, I'll ask a question. I'll answer that question in a minute. But I didn't want to write about poor people who are, abusing each other or shouting or having alcoholism or drug addiction or abusing their kids. I wanted to write about the good people who are just working hard and trying their best to keep afloat and to get their children a better life. And I think, that's something that's sort of been with me for a very long time, and this is the book where I wanted to explore that quite deeply. So many of the houses that Lily goes into are they're much more affluent than she is, and that some of them she resents the waste that they have, but others are just, they have more money, but she doesn't have any resentment. And in fact, some of them she really feels a great affection and love for, because she's seeing how they live, and, realizing that even though you have a lot of money, you may not be that happy, and your life might be materially a lot better, but that doesn't mean that in your head things are always better. Uh, so that's really what I wanted to explore. It's the disparity of wealth, and I think now it's getting worse and worse. I think we see it everywhere, and I saw it. I was already writing this book, and I'd written all sorts of bits and pieces with it, many of which fell away. So I had written the stories of the people whose houses she works in, but I realised that that wasn't the point of the book. The whole point is Lily and Jenks and how they're going. So I was writing this book, and then the pandemic hit, and I saw all of these good people working hard who lost their jobs, and they never imagined that would happen to them. They lost their jobs, and they ended up in a line for food bank, and you could see the shock on their faces. And it's so easy for someone who doesn't have any fat, doesn't have any backup, if they're just, doing the rent, getting the rent paid, getting the bills paid, doing what they have to do, if they haven't got that backup and something happens, then it's crisis. And you hear about women now who have worked all their lives suddenly having to live in their cars. It's. I think it's becoming more and more of a problem. I hope that we will address it. I hope that our politicians and our companies and everyone will start to think about addressing how do we help people who are, who are already helping themselves and who are doing the best they can. How do we protect them from those catastrophic moments? And I think, looking at Lismore, same thing. People whose houses have been destroyed all up and down the East Coast, tragedy, many of them uninsured. And how do we help them? We have to help them as a community, as a nation. So all of these things were going through my mind, and I'd been writing that book, and the pandemic hit, as I said, and I just thought, I have to finish this book. I really have to finish this book, because it's just become so clear to me that this needs to be written, and I need to write about these people, characters, but to me they're people. I need to write about these people that I love, and just see what happens to them. So, Wendy said the interview was not for cleaning, but something else. The tidying was for me, so they cleaned rather than actually having to pick up. I have actually heard that many times, that people will go around and pick up stuff off the floor, especially if they've got kids or little kids, and so that the floor can be seen to be cleaned, which makes perfect sense. And yeah, when, as Wendy says, when the cleaners couldn't come in COVID, they had no income. They had no income. They couldn't go into people's houses. So again, catastrophe. What do you do? Some people kept paying their cleaners, but not everyone can afford to do that. Some people kept paying their cleaners while they couldn't come, but it dragged on in Melbourne, and not a lot of people could afford to do that because they were having trouble with their own income and employment. So when when Lily is cleaning, Rosanna's just asked about the suburbs that they've been moving from and moving into. I think suburbs and neighbourhoods are absolutely fascinating because I've lived in a few. This one that I live in now was originally a um, an estate built by returning soldiers for returning soldiers after World War II. And most of the people who moved here then went to work next door, essentially, in the big Kodak processing factory in Coburg North. And they grew up together, went to school together, worked together. And by the time I moved in here about 10 years ago, many of those people had gone or died. But there were a few old school people there who were just fantastic. Oh, thanks, Jay Bell, for saying you're looking forward to the book. Some of the people were fantastic. They were very old school, and one of them, I'll just tell you a very quick story. He was an old bloke called Titch, and this is the story that was told about him. About 20 years ago, he came out of his house and he found a bunch of, hooligan teenagers sitting in his driveway, drinking beer, shouting and laughing. And he said to them, "Oh, come on, kids, off you go. This is my driveway." And they turned around to him and they said, "Oh, bugger off." And so he went back into his house. And then about 5 minutes later, he came out and there was a click and they turn around and he's holding a shoddy and he said, "No, you bugger off," which of course they did immediately. So I don't think that there is any of that going on anymore, and he's since died. But that was old school Coburg North. By the time I moved in, it was really changing. And so I loved that old school and it was fascinating to see it. And I'd never lived in a place like this before. Then everybody moved in like me. We wanted cheap housing and we moved in, and you could feel the whole neighbourhood starting to change, and people started growing native gardens, whereas before it was all hibiscus and roses. And I think every neighbourhood has a flavour. The flavour changes over time, but when you move from one neighbourhood to another, it truly is like moving country because everything is so different. And so now, instead of the old Holdens and Fords that people used to drive, people are now moving in with four-wheel drives and they're knocking out the back of the house and building, huge rooms out the back, and they're changing not only the flavour of the neighbourhood, but the actual physical landscape of the neighbourhood. The one thing that no one can do is actually change the front because it's heritage listed and you're not allowed to have a fence above a metre high, which actually makes people talk to each other because when you're out in the front garden, there's no hiding. And it makes for a really good neighbourhood. I think that really helps. But yeah, I'd be interested about what you think about those neighbourhoods that you live in and whether you've felt that change when you move from one neighbourhood to another and you think, hang on, people live really differently here. The whole style of housing, everything people eat, and the gardens that they grow and the cars that they drive and the way the children behave even is really different. So, old school, everyone was out on the street. Suddenly people are much more in their yards, but I'm noticing that, and maybe it's post-COVID, kids are out on the street again, which is really fantastic to see and hear, that joy of kids riding their bike down the footpath and screaming in delight. Bev stayed in Coburg North. Be interested to see what you thought of it. I wonder if you stayed in my part, which is the old Newlands estate. It's it's a really interesting thing to talk about because it also affects how we live, I think. And in the book, because Janks and Lily have moved to a suburb where people are behaving very differently to them, to the way that they used to behave in their old suburb, they get a little bit paranoid. What do people think of us? And should we hide our filthy pizza boxes and beer cans? And they do. They actually drive to the shopping centre and hide them there just when they've arrived. Of course, they settle in a bit, but they are living in a very different place to the way that they grew up, and they're learning to live a different life. And really, it's all to try and help their daughter, to try and help her. And, they do actually start to think, well, it's kind of working. She's different to us, She goes to a good school, not a private school, but a good high school where kids are, from wealthier households than the ones in the last school she went to, and she's kind of learning their manners and learning how to live in that world. And Jenks and Lily have also been trying to learn to live in that world, and they really do, I think, make a complete change that was really good for them until this catastrophe happened. And I don't want to give away too much about the book, because I hope that, and people have told me that you do actually get quite engaged in it and tend to race through, because you want to find out what's going to happen. I would urge you to slow down a bit. So Cheryl is reading The Help. Yeah, I actually haven't read it, but I think I saw a movie about that was The Help. And yeah, sort of similar thing. And that there are a couple of movies out or books out now about cleaners who go in and see outrageous things and, get involved with sort of, I don't know, thriller stuff. And, I haven't read them because, you don't read books that are about similar things while you're writing a book. But this is not that book. This is a book about the good people trying hard. And so it's bad things happen. I'll warn you now. Bad things do happen, because what can you do? Bad things happen to people. But I hope that you'll find that there's a light at the end for these people, for Lily particularly. I hope you'll be barracking for Lily and barracking for Jenks. I did the whole way through writing the book. I kept thinking, how are we going to do it? Oh, thank you, Wendy. The cover is quite compelling also. I agree. I love this so much. And did I mention, I'm going to mention it again. Thank you, Affirm Press. This is a hardback. I feel absolutely honoured to have a hardback book. It's a beautiful thing. At the launch last night, a couple of people said, I'm buying one, and I'm buying one for my mum as well, because I think, why not? A beautiful hardback. But I'll just show you the cover again. God, it's gorgeous. Thank you, Sandy Cole. Thank you, Affirm Press. And also, we're coming to the end, I think. So I also want to say thank you so much, Better Reading, for having me on. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And I really hope you enjoy the book. And, yeah, if there's anything else you'd like to ask before I go, now is the time. But otherwise, cleaning, go and clean your house. No, I'm only joking. Don't clean your house. The best thing about cleaning, absolutely for sure, the best thing about cleaning is when it's done. Then you've got that beautiful house and everything. I don't like cleaning, but I love being in a clean house. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you for reading. And, yeah, good luck reading the book.